I've pretty successfully killed all my imposter syndrome at this point.
Well, man, bottle up that solution and sell it.
I played the gorilla as well, which...
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
For those who don't know, there's a gorilla in Cabaret.
Right, that's probably a confusing comment for out of context, but go see it. You'll figure it out.
I'm Rachel Martin, and this is Wildcard, the game where cards control the conversation. Each week, my guest chooses questions at random from a deck of cards. My guest this week is Orville Peck. Orville Peck is full of apparent contradictions. As a kid growing up in South Africa, he went from dancing ballet to playing drums in a punk band. He loves musical theater, but has made a name for himself as a country singer. A lot of his songs are about vulnerability, but he covers his face with a mask. The contradictions are all part of the Peck mystery. He keeps a lot of his life under wraps, even his real name, which is not Orville Peck. And maybe that's why his voice feels so singular to me. It is beautiful and full of longing, and it's all the more powerful because I don't have the full context of the artist himself. But I don't need to know Orville Peck's real name or what his cheekbones look like, because his entire soul comes out through his music. Orville Peck is currently making an exception to the mask, bearing his face and his musical soul on Broadway as the master of ceremonies in Cabaret. It is my sincere pleasure to welcome Orville Peck to Wildcard.
Thank you so much. Hi.
I'm so glad to have you here.
I'm very happy to be here.
We're going to talk about Cabaret in a few minutes, but quick congratulations because it is amazing.
Thank you.
With that, are you ready to play our game?
I'm ready. I love games.
Okay, good. I love a gamer. I love a gamer who likes games. All right, let's do it. First three cards, 1, 2, or 3.
Let's go number 2.
Number 2. Where would you go to feel safe as a kid?
I always would kind of play that I was on sort of adventures. I mean, I loved Westerns as a kid, obviously. So I think...
Me too.
Yeah, so a lot
Deeply.
of that kind of, playing make-believe that there's a photo of me actually when I'm 8 years old, and I used it for a cover for a song that I did, but I used it as the single cover, and it's a photo of me as a little kid, and I have a cowboy hat on and a handkerchief covering my face, and so I'm still sort of playing the same game, I guess, but yeah, a lot of that kind of make-believe land for sure is where I'd escape into.
So the question is about not just escapism, but safety. And it implies that there was something to feel safe from.
Yeah.
Did you have that in your life?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, I've been able to contextualize it a lot better as I've gotten older, but, I was really, I think, a very unique kid from the very beginning. And I think when somebody is unique or, different in that way, I think it's really hard to fit in. And I think when you're a kid, you don't realize, of course, you don't have the context that these are things that make you special and are sort of like your strength. When you're little,
celebrated.
When you're little, it's sort of, it makes you feel ostracized. And I think, so I mean, I definitely, I really struggled with making friends when I was a kid. I felt very much outside and excluded from, everyone else that I grew up with. So I think, and then of course, as I got a little older, that led to, I was picked on a lot as a kid. And so I think the escape for me was definitely a lot of that. Mm-hmm. But, it's funny, like I said, I'm kind of grateful in a way that is how I grew up, and that, even though it was really tough as a kid, I think for any kid who feels kind of bullied or ostracized, it's incredibly difficult. But I will say it definitely, it built this kind of imagination that I had. Mm-hmm. I spent a lot of time on my own as a kid, and I think luckily I built this kind of creativity to, I think, kind of deal with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next set of 3. 1, 2, or 3?
Let's go with 3.
3. What's an ordinary place that feels extraordinary because of what happened there?
I think like this place would feel extraordinary to most people, but it is an ordinary place where I'm from, but in South Africa where I grew up, we talk about the bush, which is sort of like the wilderness, if you will, and I grew up going out to the bush a lot, and there's just something about being there that feels so in sync with who I am, and it feels so incredibly familiar. I think having also traveled and moved around so much my whole life, lived so many different places, kind of, I've kind of had a nomadic sort of existence for the majority of my life.
Yeah.
It's sort of the only environment in my life that feels like it never changes and it's familiar. So going back there is like the most comforting thing that I can ever do. And so that always feels extraordinary to me.
What does it look like? What are the sounds?
Definitely the first thing I think of are the doves. There's like a very particular few kind of dove calls there. It's really quiet, but you can kind of hear the life in the leaves rustling in the trees.
So there are trees. For some reason, I think of it as being desert.
No, it's not like savanna style. It's there's a lot of like acacia thorn trees, and there's a particular kind of smell like of the dust and the felt. And yeah, it's interesting, like I've taken people home with me that are not from there. My partner's been a lot. I know a lot of people that have gone, and like there is something sort of inexplicable about being there.
That is beautiful. It also reminds me of where I grew up. I grew up in Idaho. And there's this real smell of sagebrush that smells like home to me all the time. And you just evoked that for me, thinking about the smells of places that make us feel safe and at home.
Yeah.
Okay. One more in memories. 1, 2, 3.
Let's go number 1.
Number 1. What's a moment with a stranger that made you feel loved?
Yeah, there's a lovely lady who has been to a few of my shows, and she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she came out to one of my meet and greets on tour, and she had taken all these beautiful, I'm obsessed with motels and like motel culture in America because I just think it's like really fascinating. And she had gone around, and she's a photographer, and she had gone and taken photos of all these different motels, and she gifted them to me.
Wow.
And I mean, she just talked to me. She wrote me a beautiful letter that came with the photos, and just, talking about how much my music has meant to her, and like it's a lucky thing in my mind.
Yeah.
That,
I mean, that's what happens. Vulnerability feeds on itself, right? So if you you share the hard stuff that you've been through in your life, which is a lot, and you put it in your music and other people respond to it, and then it makes them also want to open a door that maybe they haven't opened before to disclose their own stuff. And so it's a beautiful symbiosis.
Yeah, for sure. And and then of course, like I'm saying now, that all these experiences of people telling me their experiences, that also changes me. And so that in a way probably dictates what I eventually write about. So they're also like, it is kind of like this symbiosis,
Yeah. Oh. You're lucky. That's a lovely thing.
I really am. It's amazing.
We're going to pull back for a second and talk about Cabaret.
Perfect.
I mean, you're on Broadway right now, right? Like, I think we pulled you away.
Yeah,
from
I've got a show in a few hours.
The stage. So, my first question is, what was your experience with this material before you got this role? Because, I mean, it's been around for a long time. I remember seeing the Liza Minnelli, Joel Grey movie, like when I was in my 20s. and it's been staged over decades and decades. So were you familiar? Had you seen it on stage before?
Yeah, so I saw the movie first as well when I was a kid. I was like probably 12 or 13. Fell in love
Which
with...
is really scary, by the way, though.
Yeah.
Didn't you think it was
Oh
scary
my gosh,
when you were 12
yeah.
or 13?
It's an intense... I mean, the story is so... It's a beautiful show, but it is very heavy at times, you know. But yeah, I fell in love with that, and then I became familiar with the revival version, the Alan Cumming version. I listened to that a million times growing up, and then I actually, when I was a young dancer, I did a production of Cabaret. So I was one of the Kit Kat boys, and I actually played I played the gorilla as well, which...
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so that's very full circle for me, that number.
For those who don't know, there's a gorilla in Cabaret.
Right, that's probably a confusing comment for out of context, but go see it, you'll figure it out. But, you know, and then getting to do the show back then, I fell in love with it even more. I mean, it has been my favorite show my whole life, really, and this role in particular was like my absolute has always been my dream role. So
I'm so glad for you.
yeah,
That's
so it's pretty
great.
wild. I mean, it's funny. I was just telling someone the other day, I'm like, I feel so lucky because I've actually been able to accomplish a lot of my dreams, which is incredible to say. But this one in particular, and so specifically, has actually been the dream I've had for the longest in my life. And so this one in particular is like, it's a very surreal and beautiful experience because, I mean, like playing the MC in Cabaret on Broadway, that exact specific scenario has been a lifelong dream.
Wow. Okay, so just a little backstory for those who don't know the story. It's about a dancer-performer named Sally Bowles who's come from London to Berlin, and this is the build-up to the Nazi takeover of Germany. And she meets a guy named Cliff, and there's love, and all this is happening in the backdrop of this place called the Kit Kat Club. And the presence that ties the story together as we watch, you know, events unfold is this role, this person called the Master of Ceremonies, the MC. So that's the backdrop. But can you explain, like, what is this person, or is it a person? And what do you love about that role? Why was that the dream?
I think what you asked is exactly what I love about the role, is that for me, I think he is both. I think I play him as a real person because I think to get, for my personal acting, to get a powerful performance across, I think I have to relate it to be as human as possible. But I also think there are moments that he exists as a concept. He exists as Germany. He exists as fascism. He exists as a mirror to the audience, who are also in this show. The audience are also part of the show, whether they know it or not.
He's also an enigma. I mean,
100%.
He is the definition of an enigma, which is sort of you, Orville.
I know, it's true. There is definitely...
There are some parallels.
Well, that's what's funny about me taking off my mask to do this, because I'm putting on sort of a character, but also the character and the show, there's sort of ideas of masks coming on and off, the mask of assimilating into fascism. There's like a whole, we could do a whole deep dive into the parallels, but there definitely are some. Yeah.
Second round. Insights. Insights. 1, 2, or 3?
Let's do 2.
2. What do you feel like you're constantly chasing?
I think for most of my life, I was chasing validation is the wrong word. I think it's more nuanced than that. I think I was chasing acceptance my whole life. And I think my idea of how to gain acceptance was through my accomplishments. I think that for me, I think it kind of made me never feel present. I think chasing anything, you can't be present, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I have really worked on not needing to chase that any longer. And I think that comes with probably age. I think it comes with the fact that I've pretty successfully killed all my imposter syndrome at this point.
Well,
I think
man,
Broadway was like
bottle
the
up that
last
solution and
the last
sell it.
stab. And also,
You've
like,
made it, Orville Peck.
no, literally. But also, like I got sober a couple of years ago. There's like a lot of things in my life that I have worked on over the last probably about 2 or 3 years, where I'm just really happy with myself these days. Which I think for pretty much my entire life I wasn't. And listen, I have my days, but for the most part, I can really happily say that I really like who I am. And I think I know pretty well who I am. And I think that makes it helpful because I don't feel like I have to chase too much.
Yeah. Congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you.
I stopped drinking 8 months ago myself.
Oh, wow, congrats.
A journey. Yeah,
it's a journey for sure. It's very revealing, and I've learned more about myself in the last 2 years than I've learned in my entire life.
Can you tell me how you came to that realization that it's hard after a lifetime of a habit.
Oh, yeah.
To say, I'm going to do something different today.
Yeah, I
think it matters for other people to hear that too.
No, absolutely. It was a buildup over a few things in my life. I was just being in the industry I'm in. Obviously, drinking and drugs and things it's very normalized, and it's a part of nightlife. It's a part of, I don't think I ever played a show in my life without at least a sip of beer or whatever, so it's just part of it. And then, the big moments for me sort of were over a few years. I was in a really terrible relationship that was, pretty abusive and very difficult. And that is when I really ramped up my drinking to cope with that. Pandemic hit, kind of amplified that situation and amplified my drinking. And then by that point, I was, just very dependent on it. And I think cut to a couple of years go by, and then, I had like a pretty definitive moment where I had sort of lost my relationship, which I have back now, but lost my relationship. I had to basically lose my career for a moment while I went and got help and sober. And it was just a very defining moment where I was like, man, like this is taking everything I love away from my life. So for me, that's like always the constant reminder, and why I actually very thankfully I never feel tempted to drink or to relapse personally, because for me, I'm so grateful for the things I have in my life. And I know that for me, drinking takes that away from me. So like...
Yeah, the cost is way too high.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was sort of that's the abridged version.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, 3 more. 1, 2, or 3?
Let's do 1.
What's an expression of love you're trying to get better at?
Trust for me. I think trust is an important expression of love. And I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with in relationships. And I think it's something I've struggled with a lot. And I think that's due to previous
Someone breaking yours.
exactly
Someone breaking yours,
exactly
clearly.
previous trauma, like, unrelated things in my life, but a lot of things in my life with trust issues.
Yeah.
And I think trust with a partner, especially, it encapsulates so many important things. It encapsulates you allowing your partner to be who they are, and trusting that that is good and right, and not controlling, not trying to. Yeah, for me, I think it's been that a lot. Like learning to not try to control my partner in fear of getting hurt.
Yeah. That's big. I mean, it is just a big trust fall when you fall in love. I mean, you just
Totally.
hope that they're there. And then when they are, it's the most beautiful thing, but you have to fall.
100%.
And that is so scary.
Well, I mean, I think too, it's like, you can't. I was always in relationships trying to seek assurance and reassurance.
Yeah.
But I definitely have trust issues, like control issues, in a lot of parts of my life. But I think that's something I've always been working on.
This is the beliefs round. 3 new cards. 1, 2, or 3.
Let's go 3.
3. How often do you think about death?
A lot less than I used to. I used to think about it a lot. I was very afraid of it as a kid. And very aware of it, I think.
Did you have people die when you were young that were close to you?
I had an uncle die when I was young in kind of a violent way, which was sort of, I guess looking back would have been traumatic, but at the time I didn't really think of it like that, obviously. But I lost a friend in high school, or I was just out of high school. I would have been maybe 19, and she was 18. And that was my first, I think, real interaction with death in that way. But I used to frighten myself when I was young. I remember I used to think about death, and I think for me personally, I've never really thought about there being sort of an afterlife, and so I think I've sometimes been able to sort of frighten myself with the thoughts of it, of that it just ends. But honestly, I think I don't think about it that much as I get older, and I don't know. I'm so overly concerned and in my head about current status. I think I don't even have time or space in my mind anymore to go there. But yeah, I don't really think about death that much. Yeah,
that's a good thing, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I'm totally preoccupied with it.
Yeah.
There have definitely been chapters of my life where I would practice it. That's not what it sounds like.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But it mentally.
Yeah.
I would just be like, what if I'm just gone right now?
Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like? I would try that on for size.
Yeah.
I do that less and less. I think having kids focuses my mind on the present too.
100%.
But yeah, it's a thing that can take over your mind.
Well, it's an inevitability for all of us.
Right, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like any life experience, I'm super interested in living and what it means to be alive. And a byproduct of being alive is being unalive. And
100%.
that is also interesting.
Yeah, it is a fascinating part of our experience, yeah.
Yeah. Last question. Last 3 cards. 1, 2, or 3.
Let's do 2.
Do you prefer mystery or certainty?
I have 2 sides to my personality that are forever in conflict in this way. I have a side to me that is extremely pragmatic and loves logic, order. I'm a very neat person. I'm very tidy. I'm very, I have there's a part of me that is so it scratches a part of my brain that is feels so good. Yeah, structure and like logic and all of that stuff, certainty.
Yeah.
And then there is like a 50% competing part of my brain that loves mystery, uncertainty, chaos, adventure, the unknown. I would never want to ruin a surprise or I was never the kid that was like trying to peek into the presents, you know, like I love to be surprised. I think mystery is a great thing. I don't want to know everything about someone. I like to make my own mind up about stuff. Yeah, that is the part of me that loves mystery.
You wear a mask, Orville. You
Exactly.
wear a mask. We can't not say it out loud.
But there is also a part of me, I promise you, that is very much like about order. But I also have a very chaotic nature as well.
We end the show the same way every time.
Okay.
And this is how we do it. We take a trip in our memory time machine.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yes, get into it. So in this memory time machine, you revisit one moment from your past. It is not a moment you want to change in any way. It's just a moment you'd like to linger in a little longer. What moment do you choose?
I remember I did a song with Shania Twain when quite early in my career. It was my first time doing any kind of duet, any kind of collaboration. And the whole thing was kind of amazing, of course, honestly, like insane for me. And I remember we shot a music video for it. The song's called Legends Never Die. And at the time, I was in this really awful situation in my personal life. And it took that situation had taken over so much mental space for myself that I don't even remember doing the music video because I was so unpresent and I had so much fear and worry and stress that I don't even remember making a music video with Shania Twain. And it's such a bummer for me because that was such a moment to be celebrated and such an insane moment, my first big kind of moment like that in my career. And I often think like I wish I could kind of go back and be present for it because I literally have no memory of it, which is crazy.
Oh my God, I wish we actually had a time machine where we could put you back there.
Yeah.
But hopefully you can imagine what that would be like for a moment.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I watch the video and it is surreal because I'm like, man, I don't even remember this. It's just blacked out. I blacked out.
There's video evidence, so it definitely happened.
Exactly.
Orville Peck, you can see him right now on Broadway in the fantastic musical Cabaret. He plays the MC. Orville, it has been such a pleasure to get to talk with you and do this.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.